The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, for an effortless finish to your day. New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
Now then, you're very welcome along on this Tuesday evening. We have lots to get through. We were due a Formula 1 check-in anyway, but then Nelson Piquet, three-time world champion no less, and daughter to Max Verstappen's partner, has more than put his foot in his mouth, accused of racism towards Lewis Hamilton. We'll talk to Jess McFadden on the way around 7:30. After 9 o'clock, the biographer of a new Johan Cruyff book is going to join us to chat all things Cruyff. Rich in detail, this biography, loads of fascinating anecdotes and a great sense of the man that Cruyff was off the pitch as well as on the pitch. And then man of the moment, Padraig Harrington, between 8 and 9, winner of the Senior US Open. On Sunday evening, he held off Steve Stricker. He will join us between 8 and 9 to chat all things golf, his own game, live golf, you name it. So Padraig Harrington with us between 8 and 9. I'm very happy to say ahead of the Irish Open this week. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Michael McCarthy, hello.
Hey, Joe.
And Richie McCormack with us as well.
And Joe, that Johan Cruyff book, by the way, gets the thumbs up from me so far. I started it a couple of days ago, and I'm reading it usually my 30 to 40 page bursts. Lots of really interesting detail in there so far. There's a really shocking revelation inside the first 20 pages as well. I don't think I'll spoil it on anybody, but any animal lovers out there might want to skip over that page or two.
It's dense, it's big.
It is. Well, it is. Yeah, it is and it isn't. It's 400, 500 pages, but printing it is quite big in this edition that they brought out.
So it's not quite Ulysses, and it's not quite Ashley Cole's autobiography.
No. But it seemed thicker. I remember seeing this in the airport in Amsterdam 3 years ago. And it was massive, and it looked like a fascinating read from the get-go, and then I kind of did a bit of background on it, and it had courted controversy over in the Netherlands over stuff that it revealed about Cruyff in his later life and to do with foundations and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's really detailed. There's lots of great stuff in there so far. Anyway, to the bits that I've gotten about his early days at Ajax and how essentially you could see how he ended up with the ego that he did, because he was coddled from a pretty early age by those around him, specifically really because of his talent.
No, very much so. The reason we're talking to the biographer is that this book is about 3 or 4 years old, as Richie says, and did court controversy in the Netherlands, but it's been translated into English this summer, so hence the reason to talk about it. For instance, and it's not a salacious book by any means, and as you said, it's 400 or 500 pages, and what I'm about to mention is maybe a page and a half, but as you can imagine, it made big headlines. So we'll chat later on to the biographer about his decision whether or not to include what he had heard about Cruyff's infidelity, for instance, and he made the decision to do it, didn't go and do it. It wasn't like the chapter on this kind of a thing, but naturally it makes headlines when it's serialised, and so he took criticism for that as well. And these are the tricky things when you're trying to do a biography which speaks truth and is offering, I suppose, a value for money. If you're telling the potential reader, I'm giving you what I've discovered here about this man, warts and all, versus, I don't know, a certain respect for a line that everybody's probably entitled to when it comes to their privacy. And that's one of those grey areas I always think make it tricky.
Especially when it's Johan Cruyff and it's you're not just walking that moral tightrope, you're also going up against a true national hero, somebody that is we would have all seen and been aware of how Maradona was idolised in Argentina, especially last year, but we all knew it anyway. Cruyff is no different in the Netherlands, really, and it's not somebody that, even as you said, even if you write 298 pages of positivity, if that negative 2 pages get the headlines, you're putting yourself in the firing line over there as well, so there's a couple of ways of there's a couple of reasons why you might think twice about it. But look, for me, it only goes to show that the fact that it did court such controversy probably means it's good, especially if it isn't on the salacious side and it isn't a kind of a tabloid tell-all, let's get Cruyff. It's just a proper biography of the man and this specific side of him.
It's quite, if you can say this, it was kind of a mature revelation. It wasn't pearl clutching or anything like that.
But it suggests the rest of the book is good to me, if you know what I mean.
It's interesting. So the biographer went and watched every single minute of every single Cruyff game he could find. It's kind of a cool thing, because we all work off the headlines, and he had won revelation where there was a period where Cruyff's right foot was giving him pain or was injured, but he was just getting through games by playing them entirely only using his left foot and still being magnificent. And you hear things like that and you think,
boots
my
made
God.
at one point when he was a kid. He had to have special boots made at one point when he was a really young professional, because he had this, like, one of his toes had swollen to such a degree that it wasn't going down and treatment wasn't working. So the only solution was to get these bigger boots. So he was wearing wider boots than he possibly needed to have, but was still able to cope. But yeah, the detail on, like, because he's talking about matches because it's 64, 65, and he kind of breaks through into the Ajax first team. And he's giving details about it. I'm like, where is he seeing this stuff? Is he like reading match reports that are really that detailed, or is he going to YouTube? But yeah, there really is a lot of work put in here. Auke Koch is the name of the biographer. Always on the attack is what it's been translated to in English.
Yeah.
I think I have seen it already in Eason's, definitely. I think it's probably knocking around town as well if anybody else is looking out for it.
Cruyff ranks pretty high for me in terms of footballers that I kind of regret never seeing. You know, like I feel like I don't remember 86 Maradona, but I do remember 90 Maradona and even 94 very vividly. You know, it was only bursts of him, but you know, Pele, I suppose, obviously, but I feel like I've seen an awful lot of Pele, an awful lot more of Cruyff anyway, whereas like my image of Cruyff, I do think of the smoking Barcelona manager. That's what you grew up on, you know, them sitting on the sideline like just like chain smoking his way through the matches, and obviously creating a culture in one of the biggest clubs in the world, and there's a legacy in that all on its own. But as a footballer, I feel like I've missed out on him.
Yeah, know what you mean. And the other thing I found reading the book as well is, like, we also, I guess, over here missed out on Cruyff the TV pundit. I guess it's extraordinary that, you know, arguably the greatest football career, if you encompass managerial and playing, then had a subsequent third act as pundit, where it seems, and the biographer was even in studio with him one evening on a Champions League evening just to observe and write a think piece at the time, or a column at the time, and Cruyff had every single Champions League match on and was watching all of them and digesting all of them in significant detail, and then at halftime would pop up and go in and talk about the one of major Dutch interest, but was really watching them all. And they used to do a thing where they would everybody was there, the various pundits have like a mini pool on all the matches, who's going to win, and Cruyff always just, you know, destroyed everyone around him. So
knows football.
There's something going on there.
Knows football. You often heard Dunphy talk about that with Giles. He'd say after 5 minutes, Giles, you'd know which way the game was going. And he was like, he'd always be steadfast in that opinion that was. Yeah. I'm sure it wasn't every time, but football men know football, Joe.
Well, Cruyff news onions, Mick. So Padraig Carrington is with us between 8 and 9. Very honest on a whole bunch of things. Was really battling, it turns out, the good vibes in his pudding. As he won the US Open, so he'll talk to us about that. So that should be an interesting listen between 8 and 9. Text number as ever is 53106. We're at Off The Ball on Twitter. By the way, interested for your thoughts on this, Richie, before we get into the news round.
Go on. There
was much talk, obviously, of penalties and GAA over the weekend. I'm sure you're aware of this. Mick McCarthy last night, just as we were wrapping up the show, put forward his solution. And I quite enjoyed the penalties. I like the drama of the penalties. I'm not anti-penalties by any means in GAA, but I think you made a pretty convincing argument, which is essentially we can, when it's a high-scoring game, unlike soccer where you could still play another hour and it could still be 0-0, in a high-scoring game you can do a better job of almost better maintaining the fabric of the game to decide
you can just
win.
Continue to play the sport.
And so your sense was either, you know, first team to get to 3 points in extra time, or first team to go 2 points ahead, a kind of sudden death thing. Because it's a high-scoring game, those solutions and others along those lines are all available to you, whereas in a game of football, soccer, where it could stay 0-0 for the next 3 hours, you just have to settle the game one way or another. And I thought it is quite a convincing way of putting it, to really maintain the fabric of the game.
To go into like American, there are American kind of sports. I'm thinking ice hockey kind of is the one that's jumping out of me. Probably American football does it too, where you go into like continual periods of added time until you do have a winner. But there comes a point whereby if it keeps, like, you don't want to get into a John Isner, Nicholas Mahou situation where you're still level after 52 added periods of extra time, which is, you know, within the realms of possibility if it's football.
Or would that be so bad? How many extraordinary match-saving points could we not want, you know?
Can I just remind you of how many men were cramping up on Sunday in that Armagh Galway match with about 10 minutes to go?
Yeah.
Seeing them getting into their 6th, 7th hour of heavy, intense action might be a bit of a stretch for them, I think.
Can you imagine? It's the All-Ireland final. It's the replay, because you're allowed to have a replay for the All-Ireland final, right? It's the only one that's left, right? It's Clare versus Limerick. I'm putting that forward. I'm just sneaking that one in, right? And it's double overtime or whatever we're calling it. And Tony Kelly rescues Clare with an insane score from the sideline to keep things alive. Can you imagine the warrior/gladiator headlines? It would be unprecedented. Now, I'm actually being quite glib about this. Obviously, I explained it last night. I don't think this isn't my solution. There's plenty of people have come up with it independently and said this. Like, I do think there's actually probably more support out there for penalties, and some of the texts we got in late last night actually would suggest that people just love the drama. People don't want to go to replays. People, you know, kids can understand this, and there's loads of arguments for it. I do think, though, as you kind of what got through to you last night was me just saying, like, there's no reason we can't just continue to play the game as the tiebreaker rather than a new game, a new type of sport, which a penalty shootout is. So I'm sticking to that. For sure. But whether I don't think it's getting through somehow. I think people do like the penalties.
People are generally happy enough with the penalties. Yeah. 53106, the text number. You'll get us at Off the Ball. So Formula 1 this hour, Padraig Carrington at 8. We're talking Cruyff after 9. The Newsround is brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. So Richie, what's been going on?
Yeah, Ian Henderson's tour of New Zealand has ended without a ball being kicked in anger or indeed a tackle being made. The Ulster lock suffered a knee injury in training at the weekend, and the damage has been such that he's heading home for assessment. Head coach Andy Farrell has decided against calling up a replacement for now. Meanwhile, Bundy Aki will captain Ireland for the first time in tomorrow's game with the Māori All Blacks. The match is taking place in Hamilton, where Aki won the Super Rugby title with the Chiefs prior to joining Connacht. And Aki was asked today how he found out about the captaincy.
I stood there for a bit. I obviously thought he was joking. But no, like I said, it's a huge honour, and it is a privilege to be asked by Fairs and to be able to lead the boys.
Meanwhile, uncapped Leinster pair Jimmy O'Brien and Kieran Frawley named among the backs for tomorrow morning's game. Jeremy Loughman, Joe McCarthy and Cian Prendergast will all get a first taste of international rugby in the pack. Meanwhile, the number of cases in the All Blacks camp rose to 6 after Crusaders fullback Will Jordan tested positive. Head coach Ian Foster is among those already isolating, resulting in Joe Schmidt taking training sessions this week. And Farrell was asked what Schmidt can bring to the All Blacks camp.
I mean, he's coming into a system that he probably doesn't know as well. It's not his system, is it? So I'm sure he's just bringing his one-to-one expertise and giving advice to the coaches, etc. And that's pretty profound, isn't it? So I'm sure they'll all try and learn something off him.
Yeah, Joe Schmidt, New Zealand coach, Mick.
What a turn up.
Yeah.
Like it is. Because I know, like, even as late as Saturday or Sunday, I was listening to something about how Joe Schmidt would not be involved in this tour, that whether he was given secret advice off or whether his contract wasn't starting, and then this happens just to, like, it just like feels like fate just wanted him involved in this and somehow just for an extra storyline going into it, as if New Zealand versus Ireland for 3 tests wasn't big enough.
Yeah. Himself and Andy Farrell were going to meet for a coffee on Thursday. They're now putting that on hold, I think, is the line. So the team for tomorrow, it's an 8:05 a.m. kickoff Irish time. Richie mentioned some of the names there. Jimmy O'Brien is at 15. Jordan Larmour with the unfortunate COVID diagnosis for Matt Hansen. Jordan Larmour will be hoping, you suspect, to force himself back into a starting green jersey. So he's at 14. James Hume 13. Bundy Aki captains at 12. Keith Earls is on the left wing, and then Kieran Frawley at 10. We weren't sure if it would be Harry Byrne or
so Harry Byrne's injured, I think, isn't he? So
okay.
Yeah, so it's looking like Frawley needs musting away, you know. But I do think I actually think could work out well. I think it's one that's worth looking at.
Yeah.
From Farrell's point of view, whether he would have went with it or not, I don't know. So that's definitely going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
This game in general, like, I mean, what a way to start it. Like, you know, you kind of have to put out almost this second team or experimental team and it's going to be up against the Māori All Blacks, who are going to be brilliant.
Yeah.
You just know they are, you know, and you don't want to lose this game. You don't want to go into the first test kind of feeling like, oh, geez, we're in one of those tours. You know, we've seen enough of them in rugby. They have negative momentum that gathers very quickly.
Get a feeling early on. Yeah, so it's Frawley at 10, Casey at 9. Sorry, I hadn't realised Harry Byrne was injured. I presume minor enough knock. So it's Frawley who gets the nod, and Joey Carberry and Johnny Sexton, you would think, will be fighting fit for Saturday. Craig Casey alongside him. We will review that game tomorrow and look ahead to Saturday and Wednesday Night Rugby on the show tomorrow. So that's the rugby, Rich.
Yeah, the GAA Central Competitions Control Committee was due to meet today to examine Sunday's All-Ireland quarter-final clash of Galway and Armagh. Central to their investigations will be the outgouging on Damien Comer by Tiernan Kelly. The former Orchard County star Oisin McConville has revealed that Kelly has already reached out to Galway to apologise. Meanwhile, Galway are to appeal the red card shown to captain Sean Kelly after that sideline brawl.
Yeah, slight hamstring strain for Harry Byrne. I was Googling frantically there. I could sense you were as well, and you were doubting yourself. You were doubting yourself very seriously.
I was ready to call myself out there as having dreamt about Harry Byrne's injury, but I did hear it somewhere, yeah.
Slight hamstring injury. So Richie's story there about the GAA CCCC due to meet today to try and examine Sunday. The Armagh situation is less urgent, I suppose, in that there's the eye gouging situation and then there's whoever else is in trouble, and that's not really going to affect an All-Ireland semi-final. For Galway, on the other hand, they're appealing Sean Kelly. And then what are you anticipating the CCCC will do about the, 13-odd Galway players who were generally involved or in that general area?
I feel like Sean Kelly has to get off, first of all, because, again, we talked about it last night. I feel like he was the peacekeeper. And if being involved or being in there is an offence in itself, fair enough. But I think we have to be realistic about it.
But and I agree with you, but is being involved an offence in and of itself?
Well, that's
like contributing to a
milieu. So this is what, I haven't checked the rules, but this is what the GAA told the Sunday game when they requested information as to why Kelly and Nugent were the two that were sent off. They said because they were, the captain's rumour was going around, that they were sent off for being captains. The terrible crime of being captain. But they said that they were both sent off for contributing to a melee. That, I think the wording is as close to that as being not relevant if it isn't those exact words.
So you follow that through to its logical conclusion.
They were part of the melee, as in they were in it, but I mean they weren't contributing to it, if you wanted to put it that way. I mean, if I was part of Sean Kelly's legal team, I'd say he wasn't contributing to it. He was trying to stop it, to be honest. And you can see that in every way, everything that Kelly's doing. Again, Nugent's probably as innocent as well. I can't pick him out in the footage I seen, whereas Kelly's very prominent. He's in the middle of it.
I want Sean Kelly to get off here, but I saw Sean Kelly push someone.
Push someone?
Yeah. Is that not contributing to a melee?
I don't know. What I saw him was just trying to calm everything down constantly. And then when he was brought out of it, he was mentioning the eye gouge.
But then he pushed that person who then pushed him back.
Shoved him slightly. That's hardly worth the suspension, is it?
I don't think it is worth.
I don't think he ever escalated. Now, here's the other thing. Who did? I don't know. I haven't studied it to see. It's not necessary. Again, there is that weird dichotomy between we do want these things taken seriously enough that relevant bans are given out in a way that discourages this kind of nonsense. That for whatever reason, in the heat of the moment, in the most intense of both physical and mental tiredness, this just seems to erupt, and it seems to happen in Gaelic football over any sport. I know we had the hurling incident with Clare and Limerick, but in terms of melees that you can think of in GAA history, it's mainly in football. So whatever reason that is, we do want to kind of punish it in a way that stamps it out. However, if a load of Galway players were just in a load of pushing and shoving, and there was one incident that stuck out and made it #disgraceful, that wasn't the Galway player. Do we really need them missing a semi-final? So I actually don't know, is the truth. I don't know whether we need to go really hard and ruin the All-Ireland semi-final because a load of lads were pushing and shoving.
Yeah.
In what felt somewhat normal until it escalated into the point of madness by one act.
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay.
And I'm just being pedantic about it from the CCCC point of view and saying, well, contributing to a melee, if that's quote-unquote the charge.
Yeah.
Then they're all guilty.
Yeah, that's true. I just don't think
what's the point of the rule?
Yeah, I don't know. But, you're asking the wrong person there. do we have such a problem with the disciplinary structure, appeals process, wording of the rules, and that everybody accepts it? And there was like the conversation, like constant conversation here that's fairly fair about, you know, teams need to take responsibility as well and stop appealing everything and saying, will we get off? Is it worthy of a red card? It might not happen, but in this case, Galway are right to appeal. And yet we still will see, if he gets off, we'll still see that, oh, why does a referee ever send anybody off a GAA? It's pointless. Everybody gets off. You know, so we'll still see those kind of headlines that don't look into it. So I don't know. I'm very conflicted by the whole thing, I have to say.
I don't know what they're going to do, the CCCC, really. Because if they suspend any Galway player for a semi-final, guaranteed serious heavyweight appeal incoming.
Yeah.
And probably the support generally of the nation, you know, which I think does factor into these things as well.
Yeah, but yet the nation wants blood as well, though. Like, there is a kind of, there's two sides to it. Like,
I think what you want here is transparency. Like, that's ultimately the best that the CCCC can do in this instance, because how often have we seen like disciplinary procedures basically cloaked in secrecy? We don't know when they're taking place. We don't know who's appearing in front of whom. And, you know, what are the reasons for such and such a ban? There needs to be literal, like, you know, note and paragraph explanations of who has been banned for what here and why and for how long. And not this, we're hearing that such and such might get a 12-week ban and that might be knocked down to 6. Like, that has to stop. That really has to stop. Yeah. That's something that the GAA has to look at themselves.
The point I was going to make, though, was there's 7 games left this season, right? 4 in football, including the Tailteann Cup final, and 3 in hurling, okay?
Yeah.
Is now the time for a mad revamp of hardcore disciplinary procedures? You know, is it the end of the year and a very much we are starting 2023 with these rules in place and we're going hard on them, and if people miss games, so be it. And it might even be unfair. And we had texters last night talking about the AFL clamping down on fighting and doing it by suspending high-profile players for high-profile games. You know, I don't think you can do that now in the middle of a season.
But there are also so many precedents. There's now such a body of work over the past number of years. Well, he got off for that precedent, so that applies to us.
Whereas if you have a new rule book,
I think so, because I don't know if this is true or not. Which is never you're a producer of the show. I'm sure.
Start here, Joe. Great start here.
This is never how you want someone to start. Next one. I want to clarify, but someone I would really trust told me that a player got off by going into a hearing and speaking a fairly not a commonly spoke language, and nowhere in the rule book did it say that, like, you have to speak in English and therefore
what, Esperanto?
But sure, you know that rumour, like, if you're arrested and they can't arrest you in Irish, you get off, that kind of business.
Anthony Daly told
like your friend who go on.
Sorry, Anthony Daly told a story 2 weeks ago on his podcast about when he was Dublin manager, and it must have been John Costello who was with him, the Dublin County Secretary, and went to a hearing to get somebody off, had a good case, he thought, you know, was ready to go, had the whole thing ready to go, turned up, was practicing his lines, and I presume Costello walked out and goes, come on, he's off, they spelt his name wrong in Irish.
Really?
That's what Daly says. Whether it's a story or it's apocryphal or not, I don't know, but that everybody laughed at that story, but they don't not believe it, because we've all heard them over the years. Sure, like, I mean, right or wrong about the Clare situation and Fatty in Galway, like, the reason they were let off was a farce, like, you know what I mean, a rule that they changed the following week.
Yeah. Well, I'll investigate what I was told by someone I do trust. We'll just officially ask the GA. Like, if someone, I'm not going to give the language, but just someone went in and said, I'm giving my defence in Portuguese, and if you can't understand it, then that's on you. Like,
so they could be saying anything.
Is that possible? Do you believe that? I don't.
I don't know. I feel like it would have got out.
I told the person I don't believe you. And they said, well, look, that's on you. So anyway, who knows? But I guess the fact that we're even talking in this way suggests that the GAA disciplinary situation needs a root and branch reform. So we'll see. Best of luck, CCCC, on this Galway situation. We'll bring you updates when they come in, naturally. Where do you want to go next, Rich?
SW19, Serena Williams is back playing singles tennis for the first time in exactly a year, and true to form, she was broken in her first game. She's taken on Harmony Tan of France there. She's currently 2-love down in the first set is Serena. Earlier, top seed Iga Swiatek stretched her unbeaten run to 36 matches by beating Jana Fett in straight sets. Petra Kvitova and Coco Gauff both had to come from a set down before beating their respective opponents, Jasmine Paolini and Elena Gabriela Ruza. And their straight sets wins today for both Paolo Badosa, the 4th seed, and Maria Sakkari, who's seeded 5th. Rafa Nadal had a bit of a wobble today. He was 2 sets to love up. He lost the 3rd set to Francisco. Pardon me, his name's gone from in front of me. Cerundolo, there you go, of Argentina. Cerundolo won the 3rd set and was 4-1 up in the 4th, but Rafa rattled off 4 games in a row to take the match. Last year's beaten finalist Matteo Berrettini became the 2nd seed, forced to withdraw today. The Italian tested positive for COVID-19 ahead of his scheduled first-round match with Christian Garin. Marin Cilic had to do the exact same thing last night. Former finalist Grigor Dimitrov, seeded 18 this year, had to retire hurt from his first-round match with Steve Johnson. Stefanos Tsitsipas, meanwhile, he has 2 sets to love up on Alexander Richard of Switzerland at the moment. That's it on court number 1.
Text in on your solution, Mick, or one of your solutions for finishing a GAA match. How about hockey-style penalties where the man gets the ball from halfway and has 30 seconds to beat the goalie?
Again, I don't see why. I don't see why you wouldn't. Again, my option is continue to play Gaelic football and hurling.
Yeah.
Their other options are let's find interesting ways to have a one-on-one competition. And also we have points in GAA. Like, I mean, it
didn't work for some reason.
I don't think we should. Oh, sorry, you mean point kicking like 45s? No, I don't think so. It's just a little small bugbear with me of penalties. Is like, why would it? I'm not saying it should count equal to a goal, but why would it not count at all? Why did the referee? Why did the umpire waive Campbell's penalty wide when it went over the bar?
So you're saying Galway should win the penalties?
I don't know
4-1-1.
I'm being very nonsensical here for this one. I don't agree with the texter's idea though.
Your policy of like take your points in the penalties.
Take your points, yeah. Just I'd hope. Yeah, it'd be a ridiculous way to go about things. Like, let's face it. But if you were 1 up at the end, tap it over for the win.
Come here, tell me, do you prefer in your idea? Do you prefer, say, first to 3 points, be that a goal or otherwise, or do you prefer first to get 2 points in front?
I think the first to 2 points, a 2-point lead.
2-point lead.
Or, I'm not madly against next score wins. The ball is thrown in midfield.
I did say to you last night, though, and I stand by it.
Yeah.
You will see the most cynical fouling of your life. Like, it will take the thing into a swamp. Yeah. If anyone crosses the 65, they'll get hauled down straight away. Yeah. That's an unintended consequence, but it will actually be the most unsatisfactory, unsavoury finish to any match you can think of.
We need more Reno Neils to be able to...
Remember Dublin Mayo a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Just all of it from the kick out, all dragged down. It would be that. We need more Reno Neils, I grant you. In a preview of Euro 88 to somebody, I remember Cruyff genuinely expressing admiration for and warning about Ireland because we were so clear in how we wanted to play and it was different. Not what I expected from one of the most skillful players ever, is a text in.
But also one of the most innovative football people of all time, so that would make sense.
Rich, do you want to give us a last story?
Do you know what, Joe? I'll bring you some golf because there's some breaking news from the world of the Live Golf PGA Tour, DP World Tour scrap, essentially, in that the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour have strengthened their cooperation and unveiled a groundbreaking, they call it 13-year operational joint venture going up until 2035, which will see prize funds and commercial revenue benefit the entire range, they say, of the golfing landscape. The DP World Tour is going to guarantee growth in annual prize fund to its membership for the next 5 years, and all of that is part of their new collaboration, they say, with the PGA Tour, building on their strategic alliance. So yeah, they're fighting fire with fire ahead of the Portland venture for Live Golf, which is getting underway in terms of press conferences round about now as well.
Interesting. Kind of feel they're on a hiding to nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, if we go into an arms race, the Saudis have more money, so what are you going to do? As we begin to wrap this up, by the way, do you know what's... It just jumped to my mind. So we didn't touch on the cricket at all. Ireland, India at the moment in the T20, I think, isn't it?
T20 series, yeah.
Yeah. So Ger Siggins had a piece in the Sunday Independent which kind of blew my mind. So Ireland here playing in the cricket against India is getting very little coverage here, and he was saying that like an Indian Premier League match gets 660 million people watching each match, and that the Ireland India matches are going to, in just India alone, get 220 million people, and it's been sold in another 70 countries. Like, the most watched Irish sports people by a distance this week are the Irish cricketers.
Yeah.
Sold out today as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Actually, I think there was like 8,000 tickets or something sold today. Like, so that's like it's not. It might not be getting a huge amount of media coverage or attention, but there is an audience there for it. It's great that that's sold out, and it's like to see one of the best teams in the world. But
there's no need to 220 million and another 70 countries.
Of course not. There's not really too much comparison there.
But we sold 8,000 tickets.
Yeah, but that's not nothing. There's not many. Like, we don't sell 8,000 tickets for that many things, I guess.
For something at 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon.
Half four on a Tuesday. Yeah, well done to the Irish cricketers. How did they get on?
They're not doing too bad. They actually started all right. I was kind of saying they had an impossible task because India made 225 for 7 from their 20 overs. I was like, well, that's not going to happen. But they made a decent fist of it. They were trucking along nicely inside the first 5-6 overs or so. Things have slowed with a couple of wickets. They're 141 for 3, so they need 85 runs from 39 balls. They're just under 2 runs and over short of their required run rate. Not impossible, but then again, they're not shaming themselves out there at the moment, so they're going to put in a decent fist, and that's what they'd asked to do going into this match, that they wanted to close the gap a little bit further than their game at the end, and it's like, happy.
Very good. Fellas, we're out of time. Richie, thank you.
Nice one, lads.